So maybe a first question would be, give us a state of just your tribes. Madison has just been designated in December, Truax Field, as the home of F35A. Doctor, can you start? Give us an overview. Tommy G. Thompson, 20 years in the State Assembly from Elroy, Republican leader, minority leader in the State Assembly, governor in 86, 90, 94, and, 96, 2000, four-term Republican governor. Wrote a book, has written a book with Doug Moe, his co-author, and he's here in the WisconsinEye studio to talk about that book. So, gentlemen, thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
Well, first off, let us thank you, Steve, because we wouldn't be here, wouldn't be for you and your friendship over the many years, and thank you for being such an outstanding reporter all those years that I was in politics.
Well, I covered you from November of 1988 until you left on, I think, February 1.
That's
and,
right.
We went back and forth, honestly, together. But let's get, Doug, what's it like to do a book on this energetic guy who travels the world? You've written how many books?
10.
And how do you get him to sit down? Because you guys, as you just explained to the book club, you met at Esquire Club on the Northeast Side.
Yeah.
Over breakfast. You shook hands, said, let's do a book, and then he decides to run for the Senate. And then you patch together 30 hours of interviews, and then you corroborate some of that with friends. And you ever had to work with a rascal like this?
Well, that was really the hardest part, was getting him to sit still long enough to reflect on his life. Because number one, he likes to think forward, and it was my job to get him to think backward a little bit. But it was an honor, Steve, really. I'm a storyteller, and there haven't been many better stories in my time in Wisconsin than the life of Tommy Thompson.
Before I get to him, one element of the book that you didn't know or that surprised you. We'll get to it.
I want to hear this.
A couple things.
I want to hear this, guys.
A couple things. One was the depth of the loyalty between Governor Thompson and his staff, and that goes both ways. I mean, all these years later, they rallied to the cause. If I ever had a question, it was just clear that the deep affection they had, and I know it went, from him to them as well. Another thing, and I haven't mentioned this before, I don't think, to Governor Thompson, but one thing that intrigued me very much was the complexity of his relationship with his dad.
Yes.
Because
I didn't know that.
It was profound, and I think he's come to realize, we can ask him, that some of the things that he felt were really tough and were tough growing up came from a place of love and trying to make it make you the best you could be going forward. But
you say in the book your dad was tough.
He was a German tough guy. He boxed, and you never knew if he was going to hit you or not.
And that grocery store with one pump out in front.
Two
pumps. You wanted a bike. He said, then go shine eggs.
Right.
Right.
At age 5.
And Friday nights, he was a county supervisor in charge of roads and bridges, which now explain things like Highway 2020, your plan for 4 lanes, north and south across Wisconsin.
These were county roads.
Those were county roads.
County roads and bridges. It was an amazing time. And that's what really got me excited about politics. To watch my father on Friday nights wheel and deal with all the local farmers and the local politicians who'd come in, and they'd sit right there and they'd take out a piece of wrapping paper for bologna and write on there, the road and how it might be going and so on and so forth. They'd all get around there and have a beer and some cheese and crackers, some Limburger cheese, and my dad loved raw hamburgers. There'd be a big platter of raw hamburger there. Farmers would be putting their hands in there and getting it out. And then they'd say, well, if we went this way, and they really mapped out, on Friday nights, where the roads should go in Junior County. It was an amazing time.
And then on Sunday, you'd go and inspect those roads as a family. Well, on Friday night, you're there taking everything in.
I did.
And I was intrigued. Your father carried around $1,000 at times, didn't he?
All
in
the
his
time.
pocket.
He always had $1,000.
And there was a time in your life when you carried more to kind of make a point.
That's right.
And I assume you no longer carry $1,000, correct?
No, I still do.
You do?
Oh, absolutely.
No wonder you need some people who love you around you.
I love people, you know. But
So, why did you write this? Before we get into some details of it.
it was an amazing thing, you know. Pat Hackett, my wonderful friend, who has been with me for a long time, we were talking about it. I think it was Billy McCoshen and Bob Wood. Two of my said, "You got to write a story. I mean, you've done so much. You got to write a book about it." And Pat Hackett says, "I know just the guy that can write it." And so she introduced me to Doug Moe at breakfast out at the restaurant, as you said. And I didn't know Doug. I thought he was a liberal, and I think he still is. And I didn't know.
I'll give him equal time. It's all right.
And to this day, I don't know his politics. All I know is he's a caring, compassionate, a wonderful writer. And I said on public TV one night, I said, you know, Doug Moe can put lipstick on an 800-pound pig and make it look good. And he really can. He's a fantastic writer.
This is your 11th book?
Yes.
Any of the others take 7 years, Mr. Moe?
No, no. This one, and then of course we weren't at it hard all 7 of the years, but it was, as I said, it was a privilege. I spent a lot of time in Governor Thompson's archive at Marquette, which is a treasure trove, and as I say, it was a privilege. Some days it was a little more of a privilege than others.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And his schedule, he's all over the world.
Right, but that's you know, he will never change. I remember in the I think it was the Journal Sentinel when you left government service, they did an article about a year later, and Kevin Keene was quoted as saying, "Somebody's got to throw a net over him." I mean, because you took on I know we're jumping ahead here, but you took on like 3 or 4 full-time jobs. You
I did.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
You promised the Deloitte, and then you were on Aiken Law Firm, and then XYZ, and you took on too much after you
I really
after
did.
you left the cabinet
I did,
secretary.
and that was a huge mistake on my part, and I thought I could do it. And I always told people I was full-time at LHI, full-time at
Yes.
Aiken Gump, full-time at Deloitte, and then I was full-time speaker, and then I went out and became that's not even a story. I was a professor up at Harvard in the Kennedy School for a semester during this period of time.
And LHI is the firm started by your good friend Don Weber.
Don
in La
Weber,
Crosse.
he's done a fantastic
Okay,
job.
you were president, chairman of that.
I was president, then I was chairman.
Are you? That's been sold. You're no longer.
That's so. That's what to United Healthcare. I'm no longer. But my son Jason is still the lawyer for
Okay.
Don and for a lot of his organizations. And Don and I developed a whole block in the city of La Crosse. You don't know about that. We developed a block. We've got a big office building and 93 apartments in the downtown La Crosse.
You're an investor. You're on several boards. Okay, but you know, at the CNN book event, you made news. You're going to launch a Second Chance initiative. You want to take just a minute or two because I do have a few questions for you from the book. But you want to talk about that? You want to turn?
Absolutely.
You want to talk about? You want to turn the Racine prison into a vocational college? No, a vocational school.
Right.
How would that work? Give us 2 minutes on that.
What I really want to do is be able to give prisoners a chance, a second chance. Because a lot of prisoners have been they broke the law and got in there, but they're basically good people. And what they need is first off, I want to make an assessment. I want to get my first class, I would like to get 300 inmates that have been assessed to make sure, you know, that they're psychologically and intellectually ready to take on this new role. And then after I get those 300 chosen, they got to sign a contract that they're not going to break any rules or regulations. Then I want the University of Wisconsin through the campus down in Kenosha and the vocational school down there and Carthage College to come up and develop programs. And I want Rogers or some psychological evaluation to come in and evaluate them.
Right.
And then I want them to be able to become somewhat like interns. I want a business on the outside, like a Foxconn.
You mentioned Foxconn and
WMC.
WMC.
To be able to monitor but also sponsor.
Right.
And so they would go in and they would have classes for as long as they need to, and then they would matriculate into being half-time students and then go and work in that company. for the rest of the afternoon.
And come back to prison.
Come back to prison, and then for a period of time, and then once everybody has signed off on them, that they feel they can leave, let them go into that company, and it's a seamless system. It allows that individual to be able to get alcohol and drug free, be able to get educated, have a skill, have a company that will buy into them and invest in them, and all these companies need help, and so it's a great feeder for these companies, and they can be trained to do a wonderful job and become reintegrated into society.
Do you still think, as you say in the book, we could potentially cut the number of adult inmates from our current level of 23,000 by almost half?
I think you can. I think we got to start first.
Okay.
So I don't want to particularly say, half or third or so. If we could start with 300 to 500 and really, do a good job, I think we could become the model for the country, and really do it this upright, just like I did on welfare reform.
You're going to campaign with Governor Walker on Monday in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Has the governor agreed to pursue this if he's reelected, Governor?
I think Governor Walker wants to do something in prison reintegration. I really do. I've talked to him, and I'm not sure he's willing to buy into wholeheartedly the Tommy Thompson thing. It's pretty radical, but I think I can convince the governor, Governor Walker, or the legislature, whoever's in there, an opportunity to be part of this.
And if it's a Governor Evers, do you think you could also get him to support it?
Absolutely.
Another example of this gentleman's big ideas, Doug?
Absolutely, yeah. And with the latter candidate, his willingness to work across the aisle, which he showed, right out of the blocks as governor. As you remember, Steve, he reached out to Tim Cullen.
Yeah, he did. Took the Senate Majority Leader.
Surprised a lot of people.
Health Secretary.
Yes.
Right. Right. Okay, page 251 of the book.
I got to give Clauser credit for that one though, because I don't think Tim would have gone without Jim Clauser.
You say in this book you trusted Clauser implicitly.
Yes, I did.
He could make decisions and whatever, and when he gave his word, his bond, that was good for you.
Yeah, I had to have that.
Okay, but you're Irish and he's German, so you had a few disputes, but let's not go there.
We did.
Yeah.
We had some tough ones, but I trusted him.
A couple days maybe you didn't speak to Mr. Clauser, but anyway.
No, I don't think it would have been that long, but maybe a couple hours.
Maybe a couple hours.
Maybe a couple hours, because there'd be something else, another emergency we had to get together.
You had to get together. Page 251 of the book. It's 2011. Herb Kola just announced he wasn't going to seek re-election. I'm quoting, "I was dismayed at having seen Wisconsin torn apart by the acrimony that had accompanied recent elections. Everything had polarized. There was no middle ground, no chance for compromise. What was worse was that by extension it pitted ordinary citizens against each other, forcing them to pick a side. Neighbors quit talking to each other. It was ugly." Is that still the situation in Wisconsin, Governor?
I think it's gotten better, but I think at that time, the height of Act 10, it was very, very strident, very emotional on both sides, and I think it's gotten better, but I would like to see it get even better. I strongly believe, that we can come together. We don't need to. Washington is terrible right now, and I'm hopeful after the election that better minds, better people are going to come together and say, let's start working together. This is not good for us as an institution, not good for us as individuals, and it's certainly not good for the country.
I want to ask about one real impasse in our capital that's been real for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
You built roads. Well, first of all, you always told me I'm a builder.
Yes.
And you say you built
always a
$2
builder.
million worth of construction on UW system campuses in the book, things like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the highway impasse.
Yeah.
And how you would fund our highway future. How would you do it? Our gas tax has not been raised since '06. Our registration fee has not been raised since '08. But are those still relevant in an era with hybrid and electric cars? Solve. If it was up to wave your Tommy wand.
Well, I think indexing was a mistake by repealing it.
2006.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. I think that was done away with. I think most individuals realize indexing should have stayed in, and I think we got, like I said at noon, we got to come together. I mean, transportation is not complex like Medicare,
Right.
And we need it. Farmers need it. tourism needs it. Small business needs it. Large business needs it. The schools need it. I mean, you can't find an element that doesn't need good roads, and we can make that happen. It's not that big of a problem.
Do you want Wisconsin to begin investing in tolling system? You travel a lot. You pay a lot of tolls.
I'm not that opposed to tolling system. I mean, politically, I don't know how to be if I was governor, but the truth of the matter is, why shouldn't people pay for use? It's not a radical idea, and other states have done it, and much to their credit. And I would like the people from Illinois and Minnesota to pay some more money for our roads, and truckers to pay more. We got people going through here. Why not pay for part of the roads? And it can be done. You can fly through these systems without delay, very much delay. And what's wrong with that?
Does this impasse bother you as the author of Highways 2020, which was
it does.
4 lanes north and south?
Anytime there's an impasse,
How are the roads around Elroy?
well, they're okay.
They're okay.
They're okay. Yeah. I made sure that the roads around Elroy were okay when I was.
They still okay because of the.
They're still okay. My father did it when he was county board, and I did it as governor. I grew up, in the grocery store listening to my father and how important it was to make good roads. And so
You grew up listening to him cut compromises, which you did.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And make things happen. And that's what's wrong right now is it's a win at all costs. And as I said, Ronald Reagan said it best. It's amazing how much you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit. Mm-hmm. And that's what was so beautiful about Tim Cullen and Steve Babbage. I still remember Steve Babbage coming. He says, "I'll work to get a Department of Correction, but I want to be the secretary." And I said, "Steve, I didn't know there was anybody else vying for it."
Yeah, you created that Department of Corrections.
And so it was a deal made with nobody else but Steve Cullen, Tim Cullen, and Steve Babbage and myself. And
Babbage, whose tenet was anything short of a yes is a no. That's one of your.
That's
tenets.
Bill. That's Bill Babbage.
Okay,
Bill
this is his
Babbage.
brother.
That's
Okay,
Steve,
let's
brother
give
Bill.
proper credit. Bill Babbage.
Bill Babbage, made
former Senate Majority Leader, former Supreme Court Justice,
Right.
may he rest in peace,
Yeah.
said that anything less than a yes is a no.
is a no. And,
Okay.
and he could take it to the bank, and I quote that so many times that that Bill always said that. And you call people in and say, "Well, I don't know." I put it up. He's voting no.
Let's talk about health care. You say on page 157, hardworking people who need a little help to afford health insurance should be able to get it. Is that the case in America right now, Governor?
I think so.
Well, then what about this big debate over the ACA and where do we go from here? Mr. Former Cabinet Secretary of Health and Human Services?
The problem is, Steve, is that the Democrats made a terrible mistake, and the Republicans did as well. They're both pox on both of them. Democrats wanted to pass a partisan bill on affordable care, only wanted Democrats to do it. Mm-hmm. And Republicans didn't fight it and say, we want to be involved. And when you look at the major things in history, major movements like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment, all these big things, they've always been done with bipartisan votes. And when Obamacare, I knew it was going to be a failure because it was only one party. So when the other party comes in, it's got to shoot at it. There are some things in the Affordable Care Act that are not bad. So let's take the good and build on it.
Like pre-existing condition?
Yeah.
And children being able to get coverage till age 26?
Absolutely. What's wrong with that? There's nothing. Those are good ideas. The problem is that just because they're Democrat ideas doesn't mean they're bad ideas. Let's find what works, what's good, and take that. And then put it together on a bipartisan basis. That's what we needed for Social Security, what we needed for roads, what we need for Medicare, and so on. Part D. That was a tough fight, but I knew I had to get Democrat votes. I went to Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy said, "I'm not going to vote for it, but I'll tell you how to get it passed." And Ted Kennedy was my advisor on Part D, and I was able to get Max Baucus to support
Senator
it.
Baucus of Montana.
Senator Baucus to vote for it.
But you still regret that Medicare cannot negotiate discounts, right?
Yeah.
That's would save a lot of money for that
I'll give you
Medicare
an example.
program.
When we had the scare,
Anthrax.
scare,
Your misstatement at the press conference. Go ahead.
huh?
Your misstatement at the press
Yeah,
conference.
we had that. I sat down with Bayer, not the Bayer in the United States, but the Bayer from Germany, and negotiated Cipro, and I got excoriated by the Wall Street Journal for doing that, but I made them come to a meeting, and we reached an agreement. I think they were selling for $2.25, and I think I ended up getting.
You wrote them a note, 65.
65,
And they came-
yeah. And they came back with $2.
This is the number I want you at.
Yeah, like this. And we ended up with a tremendous deal. They made money, but the state and the federal government saved a lot of money. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I don't know. It's good. To me, it's good politics, good negotiations.
You and I both lived through the debate over building Miller Park. And we all want to say, go Brewers, right? Beat Dodgers?
Oh, yeah, it's really true. They're playing well.
Yeah,
Good
astonishing.
team.
Right. Craig
Yeah,
Consul.
very
go.
proud of him.
Yeah. Should Miller Park...
That park would not have been built if I would not have been governor.
I understand that, but you told me once it should have been built downtown. Do you
Yes,
still
it-
believe that?
Yes, it should have.
It should have been.
Yes.
Because you would have had a sports corridor from Miller Park now to the Bucks Arena.
Oh, can you imagine what that would have been? Can you imagine downtown if tonight, if Miller Park was downtown, and if you have this John Norquist was right on that.
He was.
John Norquist and I didn't reach an agreement on too many things, but he was right that it should have been built downtown.
Doug, it was fascinating to me on the Miller debate. Bud Selig comes in and says, I don't want any public money. And it ends up $250 million. And then he turns around and sells naming rights. And then he gets a $20 million loan from the state. Are you still mad about that?
Yes.
Because you feel Bud Selig misrepresented the
I'm not
financial
gonna-
condition?
I'm not going to say that. I mean, it was tough negotiations, but I feel that we built too much of it, but that's hindsight, you know. Right now, let's look at what we're doing right now. Let's support the Brewers.
Governor Thompson next door, Jim Thompson,
Yeah.
Yes.
had talked to you early because he had just gone through the same thing with the White Sox.
Thank
the
you.
White Sox.
And he
Yes.
said it's going to be ugly and you're going
gonna
to
be
get
ugly.
blamed or whatever, but you got to do it.
You got to do it.
In the third vote, George P. Tack reversed himself and
Right.
then got recalled. That's how.
Yeah.
That's how. I want to talk about...
You know but that's true. But you know, if I wouldn't have done it, the Milwaukee Brewers would not have built. It could not have been built. There's no question about it. And if it wouldn't have been built, would Milwaukee still be here? I doubt it.
Understand. I want to talk about public education. I want to talk about MPS because the last time I looked, the 15-16 four-year graduation rates for MPS are about 60%. So you say in your book, page 122, we had been shoveling money into MPS for years, and I was convinced it had done little good other than empower an education bureaucracy run by powerful and, to my mind, arrogant teachers' unions that resisted all change. Why, 20 years later, is a graduation rate still only, four-year graduation rate only 60%, Governor?
Well, I think there's several reasons. I don't think anybody has really done anything to really change that like it should have. Choice was the big change.
Mm-hmm.
Choice, you know, I want to do it. But if I were to be governor today, I would split MPS into 4 districts.
You once offered, yeah, and I remember when you offered that.
Yeah.
And never got even a hearing.
Never got
sir.
it. But that's because of the power of the teachers union and the administration and the political scene in Milwaukee. You got to split that up. Can you imagine 4 equal districts down there competing against each other for students and for athletics? It would be a fantastic way to change the system and get more people involved in graduations.
We're still losing then generations of MPS students
we are.
to dropout.
Yeah.
Well, then page 120. When an underclass begins to see its situation is permanent, people lose hope and get angry. So is that as relevant today as when you governed from 87?
I think it is. Yeah, I mean.
The next steps. You always dreamt big. Next steps to help with the poverty in Milwaukee.
Well,
and the achievement gap.
the next step is to put more emphasis on the educational system in Milwaukee and split it up into 4 equal school districts and have elected school boards from each one of those districts. And you will be able then to start competing and start changing the system in Milwaukee.
Okay. State Senate may vote next month.
Yeah.
Kimberly-Clark package,
Right.
similar to Foxconn. Is your message that state senators pass it? If so, why?
That's something, you know, that they have to make a decision on. I'm for helping out businesses, but I'm very concerned about shoveling money at companies. You know, if Kimberly-Clark doesn't want, you know, I love Kimberly-Clark, and one of the reasons I got elected was because Kimberly-Clark moved out under Darwin Smith, and
Yeah, they took their headquarters to Texas.
Texas, absolutely, and that was one of the reasons that I got elected. So Kimberly-Clark is very special to me. I would like to see him stay, but you know, I don't know the terms of the deal. I just think it's very rich.
Okay. We've talked about how you don't think Bud Selig played it straight with Miller Park. You also say in your book, Lee Iacocca lied to me. Explain that.
Oh, that was a heck of a story.
I think that was the maddest I've ever seen you.
Huh?
That's the maddest you've ever been.
Well,
you
Lee
just get
Iacocca-
in office and
Lee-
you promise that Kenosha production is going to stay,
Yeah.
and then boom, it isn't.
Well, he promised. He called me up and said that, you know, we're going to keep it there. You know, I was on my way to down to Milwaukee to meet with the union and the companies to try and put together the deal. And the state was going to come in and build a new plant for Chrysler, not for Chrysler, but for Kenosha.
Right.
And we had everything going in our direction. And then that night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, it came over the wires that Chrysler was buying it out. Renault, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
And so they bought it out. And then I got a hold of Lee Iacocca, and he said, we're going to keep it there, and we'll probably expand it. And then, lo and behold, a year later, he pulls out.
There's a meeting in Les Aspin's office.
Oh, that
and
was-
Iacocca comes up out of his chair and goes at Clauser.
Well, I was here. Clauser was there. Clauser had said into the New York Times, you know, Lee Iacocca is a little strange.
That's right.
A little strange. And I got into it right away. Les Aspin was here. I was across the table over there. Lee Iacocca's a big man. And he and I started really, right at the beginning, it was a bad meeting. And Les Aspin, to his credit, a Democrat was trying to put pieces together.
Yep.
And Lee Iacocca got so mad, flustered, and he pushed back. And he, instead of running, I'm sure he thought the worst thing in the world would be to hit a governor.
The governor of
So
Wisconsin.
he went, and Clauser, this guy is about 6'3", across the table, lunged at him. Clauser goes back.
Did he say, I'm not a strange man?
And I am not a stranger.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Thank you. But you did get $25 million from them to help Kenosha.
Which was, at that time, was a fantastic amount of money.
And Kenosha is a success story now.
Kenosha's going to be larger than Green Bay shortly.
Wow.
Kenosha is just booming, and Kenosha is a beautiful, wonderful city.
Okay. You know, you talk about your epiphany. You ran as a conservative from Elroy.
Yeah.
And then on page 61, I realized government could perform a service. So how do you now define the role of government?
I define government as a necessary instrument to be used by people in power to do what is good for the state and for the country. And it requires good men and women doing the right things to make things happen for the betterment of people.
Okay.
And you got to also take into consideration that there are good ideas from Democrats, good ideas from Republicans, and the leader has got to bring those ideas together and put them together in a way that can be passed and signed into law and get both sides to buy into.
And here's what you say on 251. When you decided to run for the Senate in 2011, the Republican Party in Wisconsin, like the party nationally, had shifted to the right. I was surprised to have an opponent, and on the next page, it was as if people had forgotten what I'd done for the state, and that hurt. Could you win the Republican nomination for governor today, given the shift in your
Without a
party?
doubt.
Pardon me?
Without a doubt.
But you just write on this page that your party shifted.
But it's shifting back.
It's coming back?
Yeah. I don't think it's nearly as radical right or so close-minded that somebody like myself could not get the nomination. I think today I could get the nomination without any trouble at all.
Okay, now let's move on to President Trump. 20 months in office. What grade do you give him?
I think I'd give him a B.
A B? Mm-hmm. Should he not tweet?
I think you got to take into consideration his policy. I mean, he's had tremendous wins. I mean, if it was just his policy and his wins, he'd be an A. Mm-hmm. His demeanor and some of his bombastic statements of being a little bit of a bully, you'd drag that down to a C, so the average is a B. So I think, overall his policies has been fantastic. Strengthen the military, cut regulations, cut taxes, get the minister released from Turkey that nobody else could, get the North Koreans to talk about demilitarization. Fantastic accomplishments. No other president has ever been able to do that. Unemployment, the lowest in 49 years. Those are fantastic accomplishments by a president.
Will he be renominated?
Sure he will.
He will.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet now Justice Kavanaugh? Have you met him?
I have met him.
Did he deserve to be on the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Was he falsely accused, do you think?
I don't know about falsely accused. I don't know how anybody could go back 36 years. I know you, Steve, and I don't think you were an angel 36 years ago in high school. Maybe you were.
No, but you write in the book that you got kicked out of Chesty's Bar on State Street.
I did.
For fighting.
Through fighting. There's no question about it.
Okay, well.
And so.
And I was not an angel, Governor. So, okay.
Okay, so I got thrown out of a bar. Does that mean 36 years?
But you went to work at the VAR bar right across the street.
Across the way. But the truth of the matter is, are we going to pull back, 50 years ago that I got into a fight in Chesty's? I suppose in modern day politics, that's what's going to happen. I think that's sad. I think that's sad because who knows? Your mind is still growing. Your body's still growing. Your hormones are raging. You're a young man and a young woman. Who knows, that whether or not you're going to make a mistake or not. And we all probably had too many beers.
Do you remember what that fight at Chesty's was over?
It was over a girl.
Over a girl?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You allude to in the book the ad that your campaign ran against Tony Earl with the prison dropping in next to Miller Park.
Fantastic ad.
But you also say it may not have been totally truthful, but here's what you say on page, I think it's 76. Can any 30-second ad on any issue ever be truly fact?
That's true.
Well, we now live in a world of 30-second ads.
Yes, it is.
And what about social media? What has it done to politics, Governor?
I think it's compromised the authenticity.
Has it cheapened the discourse of our fragile democracy?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so because
have we hit bottom with this?
Anybody can say anything about anybody right now.
Right.
And by the time you try and correct it, the next day is here. It's gone past. I mean, anybody can pick up and tweet anything about you, about me, about Doug, and we may not even find out about it until 24 hours later. By that time, everybody's moved on. Everybody now believes, that I drank too much at Chesty's. And I probably did. but that tweet goes out there, and there's no ventilation as to whether or not it's accurate or not, and it just I think cheapens the discussion on big issues that need a lot of good people talking about them and being willing to get the evidence in there, because you don't have to have evidence. It doesn't have to be evidence-based now. You can say anything.
George Bush had been elected but not yet sworn in.
Yeah.
You go, I think, to Texas, and he offers you a cabinet job. You leave.
No, I went to Washington.
Went to Washington. Thank you for correcting the record. Yeah. But when you walk out of that meeting, reporters say, what cabinet job did President-elect Bush offer you? And you say, oh, heavens, no, we just had coffee. I was there to congratulate him.
That's true.
Why do you, Pauls, not tell the truth to reporters like us often? Why?
Because the president didn't want, he said, no, they're going to be asking you something. Please don't tell them anything, that went on in here. What am I going to do?
So then I report that, just had coffee, congratulated, but a source tells me you were offered a cabinet job. And then in the context of 2018, do you now tweet, oh, fake news from Walters, then working for the Journal Sentinel?
I don't tweet fake news. I don't.
No, you don't. I checked your Facebook account. It's very credible. You don't engage in the personal stuff.
I don't. I never have.
You have the July 4th ceremony of your beautiful granddaughter reading the Declaration of Independence.
I make every one of my grandchildren and every one of my sons and daughters read part of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. And that's a tradition that every family should do.
Okay, I was touched. Having 9 grandchildren of my own, like both of us, I was touched. Okay, I'm having more fun than I'm allowed to, but I'm almost out of questions. Let me ask you this, Governor. You make a central part of who you are is your Catholic faith. You met the Pope. You shook his hand in 2016.
Right.
Has your faith been shaken by the priest abuse scandals? Where are you now in terms of the church?
I'm still a good Catholic, but I certainly am very upset with what has taken place. Anybody that persecutes children, that's not right. I don't care who you are, Catholic, Protestant, Buddhist, or whatever. It's not right, and it should be condemned. And I condemn every single one of them. Okay. I love children, and to have anybody prey on kids or fellow priests is just, to me, is just.
Are you satisfied with the steps?
And Cardinal McCarrick is a friend of mine, and I feel just sick when I found out what he was doing.
Are you satisfied that the church, that the Pope is doing all he can to weed out this scourge?
I'm not satisfied he's doing all he can, but
You're not.
But I think he's going in the right direction. But I think they gotta really have to have a come to Jesus meeting and get rid of the individuals that are preying on children. There's no place in any religion, and especially the Catholics, to have that thing go on.
Okay, I've only got 3 more questions, I promise. As Doug just said, one of his impressions was you and your emphasis, job 1 with you is loyalty. What would you have done if one of your former cabinet secretaries endorsed your opponent in your 96 or 2000 re-elect, as what has happened to 2 former cabinet secretaries?
I would be absolutely heartbroken. And I had a loyalty clause in my office, and I said, read this. And it basically says, if you come to work for me, I want you to be loyal. Don't want you to always agree with me. I want you to give me my thoughts, but I want you to discuss with me before you discuss with the press any differences. And if you can't do that, then don't take the job.
Loyalty more important than competence?
No, but it's right up there. You got to have both.
And you were impressed with his emphasis on loyalty, Doug, as you researched this and talked to some people who helped him get as far as he did?
Yeah, and not even in a policy sense, Steve, so much as just how 3 decades later the warmth and affection was there, going both ways.
How come you didn't put in your book, nobody in the Capitol Press Corps in 1986 bet in the pool that you'd be elected?
I did that, but he cut it out.
No, I don't remember that.
Well, we told, because I've heard you say it in speeches.
And it was Art Serb, to his credit.
AP Bureau Chief?
Yes, wonderful guy. He went over to Tony Earls after that bet, and you bet against me too.
I wasn't in the Capitol Press Corps then. I came in November of '88.
I know you were, but
I accept your apology. Go ahead.
I apologize, and I knew that. I said I'd see if you were wide awake. But I don't know what was it, 25-0.
Sounds right.
And Art Serb then went over to see the Tony Earl campaign office that afternoon at 4 o'clock, 3:30 to 4 o'clock. And he said, if I would have come over here earlier, I would have bet for you, Tommy. He said they were a mess. They were getting preliminary reports that it was not looking good.
This is your second book. There's no mention of your first in there. Was that written to lay the groundwork for running for president?
No, absolutely not.
Have you read that first book?
I burnt that first book. That first book was it was not. This is a good book.
Okay,
this is a good book.
That's why.
I'm not going to take anything out of the book.
All right.
Because I had Mark Lito write it, and he did a good job.
Yep. Okay, I'm almost out of questions. Would you have run for the Senate again in 2012? Any regrets about that run? You came off that primary broke and exhausted.
Yeah, I did.
Would you still run?
I think so.
Okay.
I've had second thoughts about it.
You say in your book, your gut told you to run for president in 1996.
Right.
But all the people that you relied on were burnt out and exhausted.
Yeah. You know, I had
Are
a
you still
tendency-
sorry you didn't run in 96
Of course
against
I did.
Clinton?
Of course I'm sorry.
Okay. What about the Exploratory Committee you formed in December of 06 to run for president? Are you sorry you ran for president in 07?
No, I'm not sorry.
What
I'm not
did you
sorry, but I
learn?
should have run in 2006 or 1996. I would have had a much better shot. I would have had the money and would have had the organization. It's tough running for president. And, you know, press doesn't give any deference to anybody that doesn't have a lot of money. You have to have a lot of money to run for president. I didn't.
You said you spent $750,000 of your own money in Iowa,
Yeah,
and your aides wanted you to spend $1 million more, and you said absolutely not.
that's right.
So talk to me.
And am I happy I didn't?
So talk to me about money in politics. Can you believe the numbers now?
No, I can't. Who can? I mean, it's god awful.
Was
Pardon
Citizens
my language using the good Lord's name in vain, but it's terrible.
was Citizens United harmful to our political
I don't know about
system?
that. I don't know about that, Steve. I mean, it's, you know, the decision's based upon the Constitution. I believe in the Constitution, so I can't say it was wrong because the Supreme Court has made that decision. But I think there's way too much money, and I wish people had to go out and go door to door like I had to get elected governor the first time.
So Doug, I covered him for 13 years. Anything you learned from our conversation today? Any surprises?
Well, yeah, actually, the betting, the press corps had a pool because I was not. I'm not surprised to learn that they thought Tony was going to win, but yeah, that it was unanimous. And,
It was unanimous. There wasn't nobody.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think I've, as Sue Ann Thompson said to me late in the game once when I came into their house out on the east side, aren't you tired of the Thompson family yet? And the fact of the matter is I wasn't tired of it.
Well, thank you, Governor. Thank you, Doug, for coming in.
He's great.
Thanks, Steve.
And,
And so are you, Steve.
Well,
You're both friends, and you know, the great thing about politics is to be able to have reporters and authors, you know, to be able to sit down and actually become friends. And you don't have that much anymore. And that's sad.
that's true. So, any other Thompson going to run for office? Kelly, would Kelly make a good attorney general?
Kelly would. Kelly would be fantastic.
Oh, have you encouraged her?
I encourage her to run for anything. I've encouraged Jason to run. But
Well, he's involved with you in some of these in some of your business deals. Excuse
yeah,
me.
he
Let
is.
me
Yeah,
correct that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would,
So,
I would love to see one of my children run, but I don't think they will.
so you've had a pretty good ride. You ran for office in a green Ford, right? 200,000 miles.
200,000
Holes in the
miles.
floorboards.
Right.
And now you tool around in a beautiful Corvette. What a ride, huh?
What a tremendous ride. What a change. what a change.
Congratulations, Governor. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so very
Great
much.
to see you. Doug, thanks so
Steve,
much.
thanks.
Thank you.
The Corvette was, you know, I always, from the day I was watching.